Oh, this is gonna be a gas!
Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about a very exciting topic, and if you couldn't tell by the thumbnail, the title of this video, or even the shirt that I'm wearing today, we are talking about Wandavision. I want to do a deep dive into one of my favorite Marvel properties ever. I'm going to talk about everything that makes this show amazing. We're going to get into everything from acting to behind the scenes to even the opening theme of the show. So stick around and we're getting to get into some great stuff. WandaVision is my favorite Marvel property for obvious reasons. There's so many things that make this show dazzling and wonderful, and it's getting into new territory that we've never seen Marvel get into before. There's so much that I want to talk about that I've got to squeeze into a tiny little YouTube video, but we're going to do it today and we're going to have fun. So let's go. I've compiled the topics that I want to talk about today into 9 little sections because, well, there's 9 episodes, so I thought it made sense. First, I want to talk about the theme songs of the show. There's several different theme songs in the show, and I thought I'd get into them and break them down. I want to talk about the different commercials. There's different commercials as well as the theme songs that go through the decades of the show and push the story along very well. The acting is superb. I want to talk about each and every little thing. I only have a little bit of time, so I'll try to squeeze it all in. As much as I love this show, I do have some lingering problems and some concerns, and I'll talk about that as well. The supporting characters were amazing in this show, provided great comic relief, and we'll talk about that. So one of my favorite things about WandaVision is the decades that it goes through and the inspirations that it takes from several different shows from those selected decades. For instance, the first episode takes a lot of inspiration from the Dick Van Dyke Show, and you can see it through its different implementation of acting and musical cues. The different effects used for the different shows, particularly the first 2 episodes, which are influenced by Dick Van Dyke and Bewitched, are very of the time. The show pays especially close attention to the situational comedy aspect of the sitcom. I actually found the first few episodes to be funny. I laughed, genuinely. Many people didn't connect with that particular brand of comedy, but I got it. It was meta and creative. And that brings me to one of my favorite aspects of this show. The meta nods. This show and its meta sensibilities are woven all throughout, and it pushes the story along as well as creates a genuine connection between the fans and the lore of Marvel. This connects to the show's theme songs. The theme songs are one of the strongest parts of the show, in my opinion. Composed by Bobby and Christine Anderson Lopez, the theme songs add a very valuable pack to the punch of the show's overall aesthetic. Continuing on with the show's meta-ness is the aspect ratio, always changing, going from full to wide. Every distinction of the aspect ratio tells you where we're at in the show, from jumping to the actual WandaVision show to the outside world. The second thing is the commercials. The commercials are an integral part of the show and pushes the narrative along in a very interesting way.
Is your husband tired of you burning his toast? Try our new and improved Toastmate 2000. It's the go-to for clever housewives.
Say, this machine has some shine.
You said it.
Commercials provide an endearing nod to the different generations that the show is trying to honor. This show breaks the fourth wall more times than I can count, which I can so appreciate. I love when shows do this, and especially in ways that are new and exciting and subvert the audience's expectations. One of the ways this is done is at the very beginning of the show. Previously on WandaVision, I'm sure you've seen on the internet plenty of times over. The tone in Elizabeth Olsen's voice continues to get sadder and sadder, more depressing as the episodes go on. Previously on WandaVision goes from a cheery upstart to the show to a dismal, sad, and heart-wrenching plea for help. You really get to identify with what Wanda is actually feeling, much like the members of the Westview town itself.
Previously on WandaVision. 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 Previously on WandaVision.
So, this show is kind of bonkers, but the acting ties it down immensely. Everyone is on their A game, doing amazing jobs, really selling the story to the audience.
Oh, she left, honey. She had to rush home.
What? Elizabeth Olsen's performance is one for the books. She is amazing in everything else that we've seen her do, but this particular outing is one of legends, to be honest. Paul Bettany is amazing too. I haven't seen him in anything else besides the Marvel movies, but he is very enthralling as the Vision. Also, there's Tiana Paris doing an amazing job, Catherine Hahn, but more on both of them later. Now, as much as I absolutely love this show and will take every opportunity that I have and tell whoever I can that is willing to offer me a listening ear how amazing it is, there are problems with it as well. I'm not gonna lie. Certain storylines don't come to a very satisfying ending. Certain characters are kind of forgotten about as the series goes on. Characters such as Dottie and Herb and Ralph were subsequently forgot about, even though built up earlier on in the series to make the audience really care and wonder who exactly they are and why they're here. However, we don't know how much time the production crew actually had to put this whole thing together. We were supposed to get WandaVision in the middle of last year and ended up getting it at the top of this year, so who's really complaining? So all in all, I do have problems with it, but they're not that big. Compared to how much I absolutely love this show, it pales in comparison. Now, even though Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany were amazing in their leading roles, the supporting cast were just as great. Randall Park as Jimmy Woo and Kat Dennings as Darcy were amazing and hilarious comic reliefs, even though Darcy was kind of forgotten about post episode 7. Monica Rambeau, however, was my crowning jewel, besides Wanda and Vision, of course. I'm clearly a fan of the original female Captain America. I mean, come on now. Tiana Paris gave an amazing levity to Monica Rambeau's character. She provided heart and compassion and really showed the audience how much she could just relate to what Wanda was going through, and provided a very realistic outside source of sympathy for what Wanda was going through inside the Hex. Next, we're going to talk about the villains of the show. Now, there's several actual villains in this show. We could look at Wanda for being a possible villain for enslaving a whole town of people. We could look at Tyler Hayward, who, in my opinion, wasn't the greatest villain ever, but we'll get into that. We could also look at the crown jewel of villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That is Agnes, aka Agatha Harkness, aka Catherine Hahn, the goddess, the icon. There's so many amazing, great things about Agatha Harkness's character. Her powers, iconic. Catherine Hahn's comedic timing, iconic. The big reveal at the end that features a song that I can't quite put on here because this video will be immediately taken down, but we all know it, we've all streamed it, we love it. In other words, Agatha Harkness is one of the, if not the greatest MCU villains ever.
Girl in town, did you? The name's Agatha Harkness. Lovely to finally meet you, dear.
And nothing for Tyler Hayward, bye. Next, I want to talk about the show's genre. This bends so many different things. It dips into a little bit of horror, a little bit of comedy, a little bit of both, and sitcoms galore, and even action thriller at the very tail end. I did some extensive research on this show and found out that they used a lot of Twilight Zone tropes, which is very obvious and well past the earlier episodes that take place directly around the time that Twilight Zone ran. I, as a fan, am just a sucker for fourth wall breaks. Hell, The Modern Family episode 7 is even called, literally, breaking the fourth wall. I love that episode's use of things in particular because the show is designed to break the fourth wall in the vein of Parks and Recreation or The Office. The show uses confessionals in a similar way that provide a vehicle for the characters to directly talk to the audience. The next thing I want to talk about is one thing that I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily focus on, and that's the stuff that takes place behind the camera. And of course, I can't talk about all the amazing things that took place behind the camera on WandaVision without talking about the executive producer himself, Matt Shakman. Matt Shakman was a child star himself, and it really shows in his experience and going through the different decades. I can't imagine how hard this show was to film. They filmed it out of order. There were so many different aspects to it. They were filming in genre, they were filming outside of the genre, they were doing an MCU thing as well. So my hat is absolutely off to every single one of the cast and crew that worked on this show. Absolutely amazing. Mwah. The show was also shot in front of a live studio audience, which I just think is really cool. It really grounds the aspect of the sitcom that the show was trying to capture. In closing, I love this show. I can't talk about it enough. I literally just had a conversation with my mailman about this show. Even though the mailman was running away and I was shouting at him everything that I had planned to say in this video, still, I love it so much. even after a slightly disappointing finale. But I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and all of my disappointments that I have with the show were simply as a result of me being far too invested. I haven't been invested in a show this much in such a long time, and it was really fun to get into the different theories and watch the different YouTube videos. I love the fact that the MCU is exploring a possible evil Scarlet Witch, which, if you read the comics, there are certain things that are very accurate to that. All in all, there are so many things that made this show great. Most of all, we finally got the Scarlet Witch, and that's one of the things that I will always love this show for. Pretty much it. If you haven't watched the show, and if I haven't spoiled it enough for you already, go do yourself a favor and watch it. My favorite generation, my favorite episode really of this show is episode 6, the 90s slash early 2000s. It's mainly based off Malcolm in the Middle, and I love every aspect of it, from the theme song to Wanda's children breaking the fourth wall in similar ways that Malcolm did. It's just great. And then my favorite commercial is definitely gonna have to be the Nexus commercial from episode 7. It's so good. It explores Wanda's personal journey and really goes in with her trauma. And when this show is at its best, it's exploring mental health. It's breaking down how trauma can affect us and what we'll do to run away from those things. I just love it. Anyways, thanks for watching, you guys. Y'all have a good one.